Hi, how's it going, YouTube? Today I have a machine I normally get in the shop here. This is a Toro PowerMax HD Commercial 1428 OHXE. This is as big and premium as they get. This particular machine actually owns to a very good friend of mine. Back in the thick of COVID, he decided to go into landscaping and snow removal to help supplement with, some of the pay he was losing. He went straight all the way up to the top when it came to the snow, despite my advice and wisdom. So this machine is quite a tank. If you look at the handlebars, they're significantly thicker and wider than other ones. This has, I think, almost every bell and whistle option on it. Heated grips, drift cutters. It's got a very large engine. This one has the 420cc engine. Electric start, LED headlight. Everything is pretty, thick and heavy duty on it. So, long story short, reason why it's in the shop. My friend was out earlier this year, maybe a month ago, doing some snow removal with it. And lo and behold, he was unable to move forward or backwards. I had the joy of helping him and another guy lift this behemoth into his pickup truck and bring it to my shop. So I initially thought it's probably just a friction disc. I told him to go ahead and order one. This is the one that I have. This one was just simply right off Amazon. I thought, okay, it's going to be a friction disc. And part of the motivation of me making this video right now is, to film my process with it. When I looked up Toro PowerMaxes, there weren't a whole lot of videos on how to do a friction disc. And, typically when I do a repair, I like to check YouTube to see if, just to get a little bit of the lay of the land with it. So lo and behold, there's only maybe one video on it. So either that's a really good sign or it's a sign that it's just not really documented. So I thought it was pretty interesting. And, what I'm going to do today is attempt to film the process of replacing the friction disc, or so I thought. So as you can see, I have the two belly pans removed. They came off pretty easy. Simply 4 3/8 screws holding it in. When I opened the pan, I realized it was not the friction disc. Okay, so I have this part. I'll probably still use it just because I don't know how intense this repair is going to be. But the part that actually broke was this, as it's falling out. This is called a trunnion, okay? And the friction disc mounts to this triangular piece here, and there's a bearing that sits in here. Now, yes, this is a plastic piece, and yes, this is an OEM piece that we ordered for it. I'll show you in a minute. The one that's currently in it sheared off. Again, you could comment below, but I would imagine a machine that cost about $3,000, marketed as commercial, would have had something perhaps a little bit more sturdier or beefier. Again, I'm not an engineer nor a Toro engineer. I am a fan of Toro, so I was just a little surprised by that. So let me lift it up, and I could kind of show you what we're working with. Now, anytime you lift up any type of snowblower, it's imperative that you turn your gas off, which this one already is. I always like to go the extra step of removing the gas cap. And what I like to do is simply put a plastic bag, assuming your state has not banned them already. This is from an older department store. So we're gonna put this here. You can see where I already had it. And we're just gonna simply tighten it. That's going to create the seal. So with the fuel off, gas cap here. The last thing, I've flipped many snowblowers up in the service position, as they call it. This is probably the first machine that I lifted, and I had to put it back down because when it sits on the auger bucket, it wants to flip itself over because of the weight of not only the handlebars, but the size of the engine on this one. So not only did I put cardboard on the floor just in case there's any fluids moving, but I also put a couple blocks of scrap 2x4 and 2x6. So let's see if I could get this up the way I intend. Okay, that's a one-hand operation. So as we're going, we're just simply letting it fall and rest on that wood. And there it is. Okay, and this will give you a little bit better image of it. So the friction disc itself did not fail on us. It was in fact this trunnion piece. Now, this is going to be a little bit more of an involved job than I thought it would be, simply because it looks like I'm going to have to remove the hex shaft completely, because there's no way I'm going to be able to take that trunnion off while the hex is still on. And as you can see, there are two sprockets on the bearings. So we're gonna have a little bit to do here. First thing we're gonna start with, and again, bear with me, I don't normally make repair videos of this size. So the first thing I'm gonna do is simply take the wheels off. Okay. All right. When we put that back on, we'll try to clean that up a little bit. Put some anti-seize on it. All right. This. Now we're gonna set this up just like this. Okay. So both of these shafts look pretty rusted, and when you look down here, I don't think my friend really lubricated it, or may not have done all of the precautions you'd expect someone to do, but I get it. So we're just going to keep diving in on this. For this video, I'm gonna be trying to use as many hand tools as I can, but when it comes to some of the bolts, just to kind of speed things up, I'm gonna use my little Milwaukee impact wrench. If you you know, if you work on machines and do it enough, I think it's certainly worth it. The 2 bolts that are holding that bearing in are also 3/8. All right, so what we're gonna do is we are going to unscrew each one of them. Gonna try to keep all my stuff in one place. If you're someone who's working on these machines, you'll know how important and valuable that is. Okay, so if you heard that loud noise, you're still with me. Both of these have been unscrewed out. Okay. And you can see the hex shaft itself has simply dropped right down. It looks like this bracket must have fell right off, and there she is. Okay, so it sits, oh, did not mean that, but luckily it's a commercial machine. This sits in here like this, and in here is where the bearing holds. So I'm gonna put this here. This washer is going to go right here on the inner. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna lift up to try to get the chain off of these sprockets. Let's just at this point take this bearing holder too off. Let's set this down so I can get both hands in there. Here is one of the sprockets that sits on that hex shaft that we're going to be working with. And now we're just having a little trouble with the bearing over here, the bearing holder. So what this apparatus is here is definitely a little bit more stuck on this side. So what we're gonna do is I'll just use a little screwdriver, pry a little bit. And when the screwdriver isn't giving you the result you want, I'm just gonna give it a couple taps. All right, let's pause for a break. All right, so we're back. I was able to get this other bearing carrier off it. It was a little bit seized, but a little wax was able to kind of rectify it. So here we have our hex shaft. All right, I'm gonna put that down for just a minute. And here we have our friction disc. Okay, here is the hex shaft, and I'm simply just gonna come on over here to my bench, throw some additional light up on it. So this is what we're gonna take off. We're gonna actually, no, we're not gonna take it off. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put I'm going to take the hardware off here, these nuts, and it looks like they're Torx on the old Trunnion, and I'm going to rebuild the new Trunnion. The only other thing we're going to have to contend with, here is the washer and sprocket from the right side. The only other thing that we're going to have to do that's going to require a little work is take these push pins and out. I'm sorry. So these push pins are here so that our trunnion and friction disc are falling out. So let me see if I can set the camera up just like so. And you guys can come. All right, everyone, we're back. So this punch pin actually worked perfect. The 7/32 was the first one I picked. This roll pin punch set. It actually fit this perfectly. You can see it goes right through. So we were able to push this roll pin right out. We're kind of on our way home now. So now I could take this broken piece off. I could put it over here. Now, before I put any of the new stuff on, what I plan on doing is cleaning this hex shaft. I'm gonna first start with just a little carb cleaner, just to try to clean it up a little bit. Typically, people are doing this when they're on the machine and they're worried about their they're worried about all kinds of different pieces that are connected to it. I guess I have somewhat of the luxury of having it off, so I could just go like this, go wipe it clean. Okay, again, nothing special, just some brake cleaner, just to kind of wipe it down a little bit. I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of sandpaper just to get any of that roughness or corrosion kind of cleaned up a little bit. We'll do each side, and then we'll follow it up again with some brake clean. And I do apologize if this video is a little choppy or some of my camera is bobbing up and down. Again, I really made it. Not so much to blast Toro for their design here. I made it because I was going to fix it from my friend, regardless of, YouTube or not. So You know, bear with me here. I just sprayed it again with some brake clean. Let me give it a nice wipe. Now this next step, I might get some comments. Maybe I won't get anybody. Maybe I'll have all of 3 people look at this video. I'm not exactly sure yet. So this is definitely cleaner and smoother. Now typically when I work on these, and this hex shaft on, I would say, a large majority of the snow blowers out there that are 2-stage, you know, this is a pretty common design. Normally, this is where your friction disc is going to, well, I might as well do it right now. As you move this, this is where your gear is going to slide. And this ties to the gear shifter. So what I have a feeling happened was, if this was a little seized from my friend and he was hitting the gears a little too hard, it probably snapped here, because everything else around it is in fact metal. But even if you don't have, you know, a fancy machine like we're working on right now, what I've done in the past is exactly that. While it's on the machine, I've cleaned it, I've scraped it, tried to get it a little bit polished up. And I usually use white lithium grease. That always does the trick for me. I work it in, work it out for the gear shifter, or where the friction disc mounts to the gear shifter linkage. And that usually makes it a lot more smoother. You know, when I buy and sell them, that's something I've done in the past. So for this one, I was a little concerned about using the white lithium grease. And again, maybe someone's going to say, you know, something else in the comments. But I picked up this product. This is a product from AGS Silglide Lubricating Compound, multi-purpose all-weather. Okay, so we got auto, home, farm, and shop. Yes, I know I'm reading the label. This looked pretty good, just because it did have metal, wood, glass, plastic. Plastic, unfortunately, because that's what Toro decided to use on their Trunnion. So that's kind of where what we're gonna try for. I know this is big with brake slides or brake pads for when you're doing car brakes. So we're gonna try it out on here. I figure, what's the worst that could happen? We got to go back in. So I'm going to throw some on my finger, and I'm just going to dab it in like so. Obviously, you want to concentrate in between the roll pins. That's obviously where all the action's happening. And I usually like to be pretty generous with this. I've never used this one before, but there's always a first. Now, I'm not going to go too crazy right now, because I just realized not only do I have to put the friction disc with the trunnion back on, but I need to push that push pin in. So that's going to be a little bit of like the second to final boss on this, because once that's on, the rest should just be assembly in terms of lining up the sprockets into the bearing holders and connecting the chains, and so on and so forth from there. So with that somewhat greased, I'm going to take my new trunnion with my new friction disc, and there it goes. And you can kind of see it's kind of working it in like so. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I'm simply going to go like this, and we're going to try to push this baby in, this push pin. I'm going to try to do some very gentle taps, but I don't know how gentle we could be with it. And look at that. Went in a lot lot easier than it came out, I could tell you that. Let's get this in just a little bit more. All right, guys, so we're almost there. You could see it like this. Okay, the assembled view, if you couldn't figure it out from the schematic, has our sprocket like this, has a washer here, and it'll have our bearing like so. And it'll be the same exact thing on this side. We have a sprocket, and look at that. That thing is going in pretty nice. I'll clean up some of the access once it's all in, but I'm pretty happy with the way this is looking. So I'm gonna pause for now, help the wife, and hopefully finish this up. All right, so as I said, we're almost done with this repair, or I hope we're almost done with this repair. This is just another visual, kind of helps for you to see what you're up against. Before I start to put this in, and I'll record that as well, just so you can see the hex shaft. It's notched over here. The sprocket you could see has the grooves, so they line up. It slides right in here. All right, we have a washer that goes right into here, and then this little nub end of the shaft is what's going to sit into the bearing carrier. I'm going to put a little anti-seize right here and here, given how difficult it was for me to get this guy off. I know I did it off camera, but it took a little bit of force with the crowbar just to kind of pop it out, and we'll go from there. All right, so I got it all buttoned up now. Look, I love working on these machines, especially as a hobby, because you're always learning and thinking different processes through. One thing, a couple of mistakes I made, and you live and you learn. I should not have greased the hex shaft until we were all seated and in, because it obviously got grease everywhere. The second thing is I should not have connected the friction disc to the trunnion. I should have just butted it up, because when I tried to put the friction disc and trunnion in with the hex shaft, it was unable to clear this area. So that was the second mistake. So I had to take the 3 torque screws off the friction disc and then just have it kind of lay. I was able to easily get the sprockets connected to the chain, bearing right back into it, everything all greased up. I do have to wipe down the friction disc. You can see it kind of got a little beaten on it, just a little grease and whatnot, so that I will clean off. I'll do a final wipe down. All of these chains, this one over here, this one over here, I do plan on putting a little white lithium grease on it as well. I'm pretty comfortable and confident with the job I did here, though. It does now have a new trunnion, and again, even if you don't care to do the work yourself, this is what a $3,000 machine from Toro looks like on the internal. Again, I'm a little surprised that that trunnion, that plastic piece that connects the friction disc, which is putting all those 420 cc's of power onto the wheels, is made out of plastic. But again, I'm not an engineer, so I couldn't tell you. I'm happy I was able to fix it to my friend. Feel very blessed that I could do the work, and I'm very happy that I could help him. I do know he uses this machine to make money, and he has fallen on some bad luck in the past. So I am happy that I could provide him this service for him as a friend to fix it, because he really doesn't know anything about this kind of stuff. So like I said, I'll re-grease the hex shaft I'll clean it up a little bit. These chains will get some white lithium grease, and these axle shafts I'm gonna hit with that little bit of sandpaper, and I'll do up some of the anti-seize on there, and I think we should be good. So this will be the last video on this. I'll have it all buttoned up. Maybe I'll do one final video of it all cleaned up outside my shop just to see if we were successful. All right, now just to wrap it up, the moment we've been waiting for. Let's see if whatever I did just did anything.